Air conditioning, part 2, 1982 240D. Under the static pressure, I wasn't able to take a second static pressure video because somebody was calling to me and called me, and I had to be on the phone the whole time while I was doing all my procedures and talking, taking care of a diagnostic somewhere else. So now I'm jumping to the end of my conclusion. I did the high pressure nitrogen decay test. I did take a picture, but I couldn't video. But the leak was very slow. It was 1/10 of 1 psi about every 10 or 15 seconds. But that 1/10 of 1 psi right down here, let me get it, and right now it's just a little bit. Now it's at 250, 270 psi with the vibrating compressor and the piston and the pressure going up and down. It's barely leaking. That's just leaking a little bit. But under static pressure at 150 psi, it was leaking a lot more. It was leaking. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Here's the case of the compressor. Too bad I didn't get this on video. It was literally leaking from here with little tiny leaks going all the way around like this, and it was foaming up and sudsing. But that little leak with this leak detector was only 1/10 of 1 psi, dropping about every 10 or 15 seconds. It did not start the leak until it hit about 150, 151 psi. It's under with dry nitrogen, static pressure. That's when it started the leak. And then when the pressure fell, it fell down to 142 and it nearly stopped. So within that range it leaked. But then I decided, you know what? We know the compressor has a leak. And that I condemned before because I seen the oil traces, even though they cleaned it from the last video. I need to check the rest of the system. I need to know the operation. So since the leak is so small, I filled the system up. And I filled it. This is over 1,000 grams of refrigerant. I think this is a 1,200 gram system. I filled the system up with refrigerant and I'm running it knowing it has a little leak. But I also know on these compressors sometimes when you charge them that the leak starts to go away. And that's exactly what happened on this one. The leak is down to just one little point where it's leaking a little bit. But I want to check the electrical circuit. I want to be able to do all the controls on the dash. I want to feel and hear the door flappers going. I want to know if there's a defect in the heating system where a blend air door is open. So I want to see the AC working. I want to know if the electric fan comes on. So what if I bypass the fan switch and the fan comes on? That does not tell me that the fan switch itself contacts are any good. So I was hitting 163 psi. I think this one is supposed to come on at 270 psi. The airflow over the thermal fan clutch is really poor. Even though this only has 24,000 miles, the thermal fan clutch performance was kind of poor. I'm waiting for it to heat up to find out, another 15 or 20 minutes. What else? That tells me the expansion valve is working okay. Or at least acceptable, because this car is going to be for sale. See what happens here. This is a diesel, so it is loud. No fan. I don't have nothing hooked up. I'm not doing superheat, subcool. I don't even have my temperature probes inside, because I basically know this car is going to work. I've done too many of these old cars like this where they're flat on refrigerant and they work beautifully after being stored for 20-30 years. Oh yeah, this is nice. I don't even need a thermometer to tell me this is beautiful. You wouldn't even know that it's not R12 in there. So, compressor, receiver dryer. Anytime you do an old receiver dryer on the old BMWs and Mercedes, do all the switches. Any of the switches, don't reuse the switches, because usually when those brass switches were put on with the pipe thread, the switch, the actual threads, the sharp thread was deformed and stretched. And when you put a used switch, and even if you put tape on it or sealant on it, when you put a used switch on a new dryer, they often leak, and you don't want that problem. So let's not even go there or try it. You automatically change all the switches. And this is what we got. We got two switches. You got the compressor switch and you got the fan switch on this one. So let's go back and take a look at how this leak is going. We still got a leak. Now it's leaking a little more after I revved it up there a little bit and got the pressure up. Come on, focus, focus. Alright, so we're doing a compressor, receiver dryer, all the switches. I'll have them diagnose and put power to the fan and check that the powers work, but everything else works. And how's the coolant? Oh yeah, we got our valve is working. It's not getting in hot coolant in there to give us false warm dash temperatures, so that's not a problem. Still working beautifully. So this 1982 240D will have a long, happy life with good air conditioning after we get through with it. See you guys on the next one. Sorry I couldn't get you video of the static. This one, the static test, found more of a leak than the dynamic test. But I knew it was leaking anyway, because it's one of those pancake radio core compressors, and those case seals dry out. And when it came in here, it had 0 PSI refrigerant, so I basically knew what I was getting into. And because they steam cleaned it so well for resale, there is no evidence of any oil or dust buildup. See you guys on the next one.